I think that we all go like rushing out to the mountains, or we go on a tropical vacation and we go to these like ecological areas of interest. And I think if more people saw what a native prairie looks like, there would be way more appreciation for what it is.
Hey gardeners, it's Brandy. Well, this week we're bringing you a conversation with our friend Nathan Gill from Ecologic Horticulture. To be honest, we've had this episode in the can for a while, just before summer and just a couple days before baby Bennett was born. So it has been sitting here stewing with so much good, relevant information about native plants. And honestly, we just couldn't not share it with you. It's so good. Nathan is the owner of Ecologic Horticulture, a nursery operating on 25 acres just east of Calgary, with a focus on producing horticulture products to accelerate ecologic restoration and urban naturalization. In this conversation, we covered the tremendous value native plants bring to your garden and your local ecosystem, providing super easy ways to include them in your own garden, and highlighting some fantastic new installations here in the city of Calgary if you're nearby. And the best part, we get to give you the scoop on the recent installation near downtown that we actually got a chance to roll up our sleeves and be involved with. If you're curious about native plants or are interested in creating a similar impact right where you live, this episode is for you. Perfect. Hi, Nathan. Thanks so much for being here today. We're so excited because we obviously spend a lot of time with you. This year talking about native plants and with our community planting day. But now everybody else that listens to our podcast gets to meet you. So thanks so much for taking the time. I know you're really busy.
Yeah, and I want to say one thing here. The impact that we've seen in store from having Nathan's plants, yeah, from having the native plants, it's been so exciting. People buy 3 of the same type of grasses, or 3 different grasses, or a perennial, a shrub, and a grass, but it's always multiples. You never see 1 or 2. It's normally 3s or 5s or 6s that are going out the door, and that really it gets me excited. I always want to follow them and be like, can I see a photo of your yard?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, guys. It's really, it's nice to have this chat after, we've had a few things going on this spring with you guys, and it's nice to hear that positive feedback, and it's something we hear a lot from consumers, that they're looking for somewhere to be able to find native plants in a garden center, and it's great that we had the opportunity to work with you guys this year.
Yeah, well, let's talk a little bit about horticulture, or ecologic horticulture, just sort of like who you are, what your mission has been, kind of where you started. Where does ecologic horticulture come from?
Yeah, so our company is fairly new. We're in our 2nd year, actually, but our roots are with a company called Gill of Turf Farms and Landscape Supply, and then that company's roots go back even further to Ecologic Nurseries. So, I won't bore you with the history, but we've kind of grown as an offshoot of a company that started over 50 years ago in Alberta, and Ecologic Horticulture was something that we were building within the Eagle Lake brand, and it just kind of outgrew that space and the capacity of the company, and really we had a bigger vision to take off with. And so really our vision is providing products and plant material that are going to help to accelerate ecological restoration. That's our mission statement, and also urban naturalization. So we're also surrounded by so much concrete and so many plants that have been introduced here, and really for us, we're looking to take our cues from nature a little bit more, and like what actually belongs in the spaces that surround us. And we see so often, and like if you listen to like a call-in gardening show, it's just like one person after another asking questions about plants that aren't native to this area, and they're struggling with diseases and pests and drought and you name it, and it's like there's all these plants that do belong here that are going to be thriving here and providing benefit to the local ecosystem as well. And so it's not going to replace people's ornamental garden plants, which I'm the same. I have lots of things that I love that are not native in my garden, but it's also just trying to find a way to like connect more with our local ecology, and really seeing that there's a huge unmet demand for that in the market.
There really is. I know for years we heard people, like you mentioned, really requesting it and wanting to learn more about it. And what was so cool this year was that we all got to really kind of learn more, but also to expand that knowledge to a lot of people. And that's where the community planting day really came into effect. And I kind of want to get a perspective from both Colin and yourself, Nathan, on sort of how that was born and how it evolved and sort of the impact of it. So maybe we'll start with Colin. Like, so how did that idea kind of come to be? And what was it?
The seed got planted last year when Nathan and I were talking in the tree lot here at Golden Acre, and we were talking about native plants and would this be a possibility? And the possibility being Golden Acre carrying native plants.
Yeah.
And I was telling Nathan that we couldn't do plugs, we needed them potted, and he was talking, he could do that and how it would look. And we were saying, we need to get the word out there. We need a call to action. And I said, what about a community-led planting day? We could talk to the city, we could figure something out. It changed from, we were looking for a scrappy piece of land, maybe somewhere on Nose Hill, maybe Confederation, to where we ended up. So the city were behind it, and I'll let Nathan fill in the gaps there, because that was where it started, and where it went, I think it exceeded everybody's ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like you said, Colin, we were really just looking for a way to try to promote the idea of using native plants within the city to Calgarians. And for us, as a more commercially geared nursery, we work a lot with the city of Calgary on projects, and so you get to know a lot of the folks. And so just reached out to some people in the North Zone Parks Department and kind of brainstormed with them like what could be a good space to showcase an implementation of native plantings. And really, I didn't imagine that it'd be such a nice kind of high profile spot that we got at Rotary Park. Was pretty exceptional, and it was pretty scruffy piece of land, but in like a really nice park, right? And so it wasn't really what I had in mind when we started talking, Colin. Or like we were thinking about like the edge of Nose Creek or something like that, which would have been great. And those are places where, like, generally we see our plants going that make an impact on restoring native plant material to natural areas. But putting it right in front of that lion that looks over downtown Calgary, and it's a real destination for people, and it's somewhere that now folks can go and look at what maybe a rough fescue grassland should look like, and really, for us, we hope to start seeing more and more areas restored to that native grassland, rather than seeing like acres and acres of boulevards being mowed for no apparent reason and filled with agronomic grasses that don't belong here, and seeing them replaced with diverse native grassland meadows that sequester carbon and provide food for native insects, and native insects feed the local birds. It's really just, it starts from the plants up, right? And so it's just so critical 100%. To see some of these initiatives, and for us to be able to pull something like that together. It was a very small area, right? But it had a big impact on the people that were there, and I think it was a great way to promote the use of native plants.
I think my favorite takeaway is that you and I probably planted the fewest amount of native plants. We got to plant junipers and sod. We let Caitlin and the volunteers run with their thing, and we did the job that maybe not everybody likes to do.
And you mentioned the juniper, and it's like one of the little bit of lessons learned for us, and like a little bit of trying to understand how native plants might fit into the garden center world is like, junipers, like Juniper horizontalis, which we were planting there, is a native species. But when we look at our native plants in the store, and then you walk around and you see all the showy stuff, it's always just kind of like, you feel a little bit kind of like inadequate in a way, right? Because the native plants are well, they're not bred the way that cultivars
Yep.
are, right? Cultivars are bred like, because that, I'm not sure what that cultivar juniper was, but it was like really showy and really robust, and probably is in its prime in the garden season, and so all those things is what motivates what ends up on the shelf at a garden center, right? It's like what's going to grab someone's attention, so they're going to pick it up and spend $30 or $40 on it and take it home and plant it in their yard, versus the plant that we've gone out into the native area and collected the cutting and propagated it, and it's a little bit more modest in size. It's not as showy because it's not been bred for
Maybe we
those
should change the name
characteristics.
from instead of native plant, we could call them handmade artisanal plants.
I think that might have some legs. I think so.
He's so supportive. He's so supportive. Here I am being like, that is bullcrap.
I think it could work.
No, but I love, one of the main things that I know I was thinking about was, oh no, we've planted these plants and it's near downtown. How are we going to protect them? Can you go through the process of, I saw you laying down like a hay-like or straw-like material. I saw fencing going up. How do you protect something after spending all that time on it?
Honestly, that's the challenge that municipalities face. Any public space, there's always members of the public who feel like they need to go inside of an area even though it's fenced off and signed. I just visited a site the other day where they put some of our plants at the top of a hill in a park, and they have it fenced off, and every single night somebody comes, cuts the zip ties, opens the fence, and goes into the area every night. Not like once or twice, every single night.
Like, why?
And so you got to hand it to that person, right? Like maybe it's just fun for them at this point to like do that, but you see it all over the city. Restoration areas, fences and signages, and then look, somebody's taken the fence down because they want to take a shortcut, or they feel like they're entitled to this space. You just kind of have to be okay with the fact that there is going to be members of the public who are probably going to go into an area, and even though the city fenced off the area, and it was something that for me, like, I really wanted to highlight to the city, that there was around $10,000 of donated product there between the corporate sponsors of the event, Golden Acre, ourselves, and Eagle Lake, and then all the time that went into planning the event, that it was should be a priority to fence it off. But you just kind of have to like be okay. It's in the public realm. You can't have a security guard there or something, right?
Yeah.
And hope that 90% of it is okay. I don't know.
Exactly. It was interesting too, seeing how many members of the public were coming up out of curiosity. They're like, "What are you doing?
Yep.
What's going on here?"
Yeah. It was.
A lot of people from the community who are like, they're pet owners or whatever, and they're just like, "I'm going to put this in the group chat."
Yep.
That kind of thing. It was so cool to see people welcoming and excited to see native plants, and it's almost exciting for them to see the progress, because like, how long would you say it would take for those native plants that we planted to really like mature?
Oh yeah.
I think that site, if it gets adequate water, like if we keep getting some nice rainfalls like we're getting, it's gonna look pretty mature by next summer.
Wow.
Those plants that we supplied there, they were all propagated at the nursery, and were well over a year old at that point. So they were ready to grow and expand. And we overplanted the area. Like there's 1,200 plants that were planted in a 1,000 square foot area. So that's a plant per square foot, and most of those grasses are going to want to have a square foot of real estate to themselves. So I think by next year it'll start to show its form, and I think that's like something for myself that like personally inspired me about wanting to do this work, is that we live in the prairies, and sometimes like it can feel kind of boring, right? Like we all have that, like, oh yeah, driving across the prairies is like the most boring thing, and all these, you see your dog run away for days, and but there's so much beauty in a native prairie, right? And one of the, like, for me, being able to like go out to a ranch where somebody had protected their native prairie and see the diversity and see the insects and see the birds, and really just wander around and see that, to me it's something that I think 99.9% of people haven't had that experience.
Yeah.
And I think that we all go like rushing out to the mountains, or we go on a tropical vacation and we go to these like ecological areas of interest. And I think if more people saw what a native prairie looks like, there would be way more appreciation for what it is. It's not just boring, and it's not even flat. There's so much interest. And I would just encourage, like, if, folks are listening from, various places, but like in Calgary, there's a new park that's called Cascade Legacy Park, which was land that was donated to the city. And there's a fairly nice area of rough fescue grassland there, which is what, it has probably been there for thousands of years, that people can go and see. And they've protected it because it's so, there's so little of it left around the city, right? Anything that's flat has basically been cultivated.
Yeah.
And so most grassland areas are just on hillsides now, because the hillsides couldn't be cultivated. And those hillsides are under pressure from agronomic grasses. And so, if you're near Calgary, go see that park. Or if you're, across the prairies, there's all sorts of like little land reserves where you can go and see native grasslands. It's a beautiful space, and it has real merit to visit and try to understand. And I think more people would appreciate it, and we might see more change like within our municipalities, where we're not just like having acres of turf grasses that we're mowing and that provide limited benefit.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying there, Nathan, is so true, because you ask somebody to describe the prairies in the first, it's just grasslands, like very dismissive. And it's like asking somebody about the desert. And they're like, oh, it's just barren and rock or sand. But you go out to the desert in the morning or the evening, golden hour. You go out to the prairies at 2 o'clock in the middle of the day, and the buzz from all of the wildlife, the birds and the bugs. And there is so much more to it than just rock, grass. Like any diverse environment has so much. And I think that's what more and more people are picking up on now, is that like, you know what, this is my home. Calgary is a prairie city. Maybe I should have a bit more interest in that. And slowly it grows. Change takes time, but I think a lot of people are getting on board with exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And I had the fortune, being in the industry that I'm in, there's a lot of interaction with First Nations people, and I went to a meeting last year that was held out at the Crowfoot Crossing. I guess it's like an interpretive site. It's just east of Calgary. And on their building, they have kind of like a half moon shape ornamentation. And we had a great tour from a guide there who was just really knowledgeable in sharing First Nation wisdom. And something that he shared was that symbol actually represented the prairie. And he said, like, a lot of people think, well, that's strange, right? It's like a bunch of half circles.
Yeah.
He's saying, but that's when you're in the prairie, like when you're actually immersed in the prairie, everything is up and down, right? The plants, the hills. It looks all flat from the distance, but when you're connected to it and you're aware, and so that was like a very grounding symbol for them to know where they're from.
Well, because a lot of the grasses are mound grasses. If you've walked on a prairie, it's not walking on a baseball diamond. Your ankles are turning, you're up and down, and there's a lot more to it. That's really cool. That's a symbol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah. Great shout out to that place. It's an amazing place for people to visit.
We'll have to drop that in the link.
It's beautiful.
We'll drop it down in the show notes, because I really want to go now too. With all of the inspiration that you have seen with native plants, how did you decide on what you were going to include in the community planting day? Because there's so many different kinds of grasses, and you're like, okay, this is a very central location. It's going to get a lot of people that are going to look at it. How do I make the biggest impact? So how did you make that decision?
Yeah, it's a really common question that we get. We get tons of inquiries from people. They're like, oh, I just bought 4 acres and I want to naturalize it. What should I plant? And so the way that we operate, from a consulting point of view with customers is that we are looking at reference communities, right? So within the ecoregions of Alberta, or in other provinces, they might have different names, but in the ecoregions of Alberta, you can find documentation about reference communities, right? So if we look at where Rotary Park is located, it's within Calgary, which is in the Foothills Rough Fescue ecoregion. And so we know what essentially an untouched reference site would look like, right? So then you go to that reference site and you say, okay, so, in this reference site, you're going to find predominantly Foothills Rough Fescue bunch grasses. And then you're going to find other grasses like blue grama grass, western wheatgrass, Perry's oakgrass. And so you're going to see what that plant community looks like, and then you use that as your guide. And so that's one approach that like we're really trying to educate people on. Like we work a lot with landscape architects who do like big projects, right? And so oftentimes their implementation approaches are not like fully informed, right? So for example, like Foothills Rough Fescue, it should be like, I don't know, maybe 70% of the ground cover in this region. And it's really almost, probably less than 0.1%. If you go to Nose Hill Park, which is a protected area, you're going to find them up there, but they're here and there because they're competing against agronomic stuff. And so, but the challenge with that grass is that the seed is not commercially available, really. Everything that's available is collected from the wild, right? So from natural areas. So it's either hand collected or small mechanized collection. And so with plants like that, or with seed like that, you don't want to take that finite amount of seed and just throw it on the ground and hope that it grows, because it's going to have a very low success rate. Yeah. Versus if we grow it in the nursery, we get like a 90% germination rate on it. And so we can actually deliver plants. And so many native restoration areas, the approach has just been to like throw a bunch of seed down. And it's a hard place to grow seed. We live in like a really challenging environment. It's super dry. Rainfall's inconsistent. When it comes, it probably washes half the seed away. Yep. Germination rate's really low, and in the end, all these areas just end up with like one or two types of grasses maybe, and mostly weeds, because they face so much weed pressure in the urban environment. And so when we look at a site like that, it's like, okay, how do we get this to be like a reference site? And that reference site is a natural area that's never been developed and has the native plant community there. And so that was really what the plant list that we provided to Rotary Park was based on.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. I love that approach, actually.
Yeah. And I mean, arguably the flip side of that is not only are you going back to how it used to look, but arguably, because that is how it naturally evolved, those plants should thrive relatively without much maintenance. Like the area should be good for them.
That's right. And then, for the vast number of plants that we grow, the seed that we're using is collected locally. So the seed that was grown was used to grow those rough fescue plants was collected, literally 30 kilometers to the west, and then we propagated it in our nursery. And so it's the genetics are totally local and appropriate to that site.
Wow. Oh, that's cool. I think one of the things that I really wanted to get out of this episode too was just inspiring other people in other communities to look at doing some kind of native plant installation in their own community. And were there any like main challenges that you encountered in this project? I know, doing larger projects like this are your thing as Ecologic Horticulture, but, if somebody was going to be looking and got inspired by this episode, what would you tell them to like watch out for or to consider, that kind of thing?
Honestly, it was like completely frictionless.
Wow.
The folks of the city, they're people that we work with closely over the years, so we have relationship with them. And so and for them it was like, I don't like, city folks kind of get a bad rap with the public, but like at the end of the day they have a lot of space to maintain, right? And they have like, they're often just like reacting to complaints, and it's if you're reacting to complaints, it's not the most efficient way to use your time. And so like sometimes it's just not that thoughtful, and they had that space that they needed to do something with it. And so in a way it was like one less thing on their to-do list, honestly. I think
Oh
that's
yeah.
partly
Yeah.
how they looked at it. And then also we looked at it as a way to really showcase some of our products. Like we use some of our other restoration approaches in that site, and so for us it was like a way to demonstrate that. And so I just did up like a rudimentary design to take to the local ecologist and show her what we were thinking, and then make sure it worked with um, the community stakeholders so that they were okay with what was being done there. But really, like, it there was no friction or challenge with it. I think that I would just say, you know, when you're doing anything like that, when you have lots of people involved, I don't know, like you just have to roll with the punches and try to, you know, find some consensus, and everyone's trying to do something positive and move in the same direction. I think that at the end of the day, like, if you're doing something and it's charitable and it has the right intentions, it should go pretty smoothly. If it's not, then probably the wrong people are involved.
Absolutely. If volunteers are coming together and people are making donations and everybody is striving for the same goal as one thing, if you took Ecologic out of that picture, I don't know that there would be as many people that would be as comprehensive in thought or planning as you were with the contacts with the city. When
I appreciate that.
just the facts, man, and I'm like, well, is he gonna be braggadocious? Because if he isn't, I'm gonna be braggadocious about my friend. Everybody was on board. You knew what you were talking about. There was leadership. There was humor. There was backwards and forwards. The community were involved. And that all stems back to the fundamentals, which are, you know, the principles you were behind, and then the partners, including Golden Acre and Eagle Lake and the city and that community, all came together. So, yeah, everything you said is right, but I think you need to maybe pump yourself up there a little bit. And if not,
Okay,
I'll
well,
do
you
it
know
for
what?
you.
Yeah, and part of it for us, you know, it's kind of fun to actually, you know, like as a business, we grow product, or we grow plants, we sell products, and you know, we give people implementation advice, but we don't often actually get to get our hands dirty. And I come from a contracting background, and so not landscape contracting, but it's nice to like have the opportunity. And I've done things like this in the past in relation to green roofs, where it's nice to just kind of like carry out the work yourself and get a bit of experience, and also like use your products and you know, understand how they might be received by your customers. And so it's really a good experience for us. And so, you know, that was like one of the things for us being involved. Like, we get as much out of something like that as anyone else. And so we did put quite a bit of effort and energy into making sure that it was a success. It's really important that I think if people volunteer their time, and like you shared your experience, that people should be respectful of that. Like, if someone's going to
100%.
give up their Saturday morning, like, you better have your ducks in a row and make it something that's reasonable and achievable, and it's going to be a success, and people want to come back and do it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know,
Yeah.
you know, your company is involved in so many projects, you know, in the city of Calgary and surrounding areas. And I know there's so many places where I'm sure I'm going to be out walking around somewhere and I'm going to see Ecologic Horticulture and be like, oh my gosh, they did that.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see, you know, the public spaces that we get to wander around and get to enjoy native plants. And not only our community planting day, you know, spot by Rotary Park, we get to enjoy that for years to come. But let's make the connection to our backyard garden. So say Calgarians are getting out and they're appreciating these native plant areas, and they're like, I want to get some of this in my own garden. So let's talk about that process a little bit.
Well, you know, I think that you treat it like any other plant. Like, I have a large perennial garden. Like, my front yard's all perennials, and then around the perimeter of my backyard, you know, I have like kind of a 4-foot defined perennial bed garden. And really, you just look at them from an aesthetic point of view. Like, is that the right height? Is it the right color? Is it going to get the right interest? Like, there's nothing different to that approach, but there's definitely, I think, a different like type of thoughtfulness to putting it there, because, you know, I think that native plants, again, they're not bred to be like the most showy or have the most blooms, or, you know, like all those things that is what's driving what's in the nursery space currently. but knowing that, okay, I'm going to put this plant in my garden, and that plant is going to provide a food source for a native insect that is critical to the base of the food chain, or might only flower after 3 years, and it's almost kind of like a special thing, right? It's not just like, oh, this like bulletproof, proven winners, amazing, showy thing. That's, like, that's great. I've got those in my garden too. But then it's like, I love when my silvery lupin that I collected the seed on a camping trip, and it blooms every year. And now I take all, and then you're then working with plants that are producing viable seeds as well. And so a lot of nursery cultivars are bred so that they're not providing viable seeds and they're not spreading, and that's really intentional. For a variety of reasons. But now I've got, like, this year I have like 30 tiny silvery lupin seedlings in my garden that now I'm planting around my back alley, and I'm going to give some to my neighbor, and someone at work wants one of them, and now I'm spreading those plants around. And so that, I think that's the number one consideration that I share with people when you're considering putting native plants in. You're growing plants that are going to produce viable seed. And so if you're trying to contain your plants to where you want them to be, and you're being very intentional about your garden, you're going to want to be aware of the seed cycle. I mean, I think as a gardener, like, saving seed is like one of the coolest things. It's something that I've passed on to my boys. Like, it's just so neat that you can grow a plant and then collect the seed from it and make more plants. Like, it just, honestly, in my vegetable garden, it never gets old, right? Like,
it feels like one of those. It feels like one of those hacks. You're like, shh, don't tell anybody. But you only ever need to buy one seed, and you've got this whole, and people. We did a webinar on that, and it's the amount of people that are like, you can tell it's never actually considered that when they cut a tomato and it's full of seeds. They've never made that connection, and it's like it's right there. Every tomato you've eaten, it's right there.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so you can have that same experience with native plants, and keep the seeds, try to grow more plants from it. Some of them are really challenging to grow, but sometimes the things in the garden that are the most challenging become the most rewarding.
Absolutely.
Like, I finally got that prairie crocus going, right? And look at, it's the first thing to bloom in April, and isn't that awesome? Like, that sense of satisfaction. So there's just a different kind of, like, gardening experience that you can introduce into your yard if you start looking at some of these native species, and just knowing that you are doing something positive for the local ecology. And if those seeds escape your yard and they go and naturalize the open spaces in your area, then that's great. That's a native weed.
Yep.
Ooh, that's a cool thought. Hey, if you lived near like a local dog park or something like that, and then they kind of crept over, it's sort of like guerrilla gardening, but like not.
Passive guerrilla
I don't
gardening.
even know what you would call that.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like going against what's happening now with the non-native species encroaching into the natural areas. Like, I live by a beautiful natural area, and there's a lot of native plant diversity there, but there's also just a bunch of stuff that's coming out of people's gardens that doesn't belong there and is really aggressive. And so something to be aware of as gardeners, that if you have plants that produce viable seed, just make sure that you're responsible about it, because like there's like Shasta daisy and bachelor buttons all over the place in the local area by my house, and they're beautiful, but they don't belong there, and they provide competition to the plants that do belong there, and those spaces are pretty limited. Like, as
the Mona Lisa would look beautiful in my living room, but it doesn't belong there.
Sure, that's a good point, Colin. I mean, once established, native plants are really great because they're bred to be here.
Yep.
And touching on like the reduced need for fertilizers, less water. Like, there's so many benefits, and especially if we have really dry seasons in Alberta, that can be a huge benefit for your garden. It can save you water. It can save you so many things. It can save you like time. Like, I feel like having native plants is like the best gardening hack for like 2025.
It's obviously, there's people who like they're there to get the native plants. They do not need my input. They're just excited to see them and they're leaving with them.
Yeah.
But then there's the people that maybe they need a bit of hand holding. And there's so much to nerd out about. There's so many things I'm so excited to tell them about carbon sequestering and the history and the culture and blah, blah, blah. And you can see them, they're listening. The moment you hit drought tolerant, lower maintenance, pest and disease resistant, that's when people really start perking up. Because you started with this, Nathan, and it's such a valid point. Is that the amount of times people come and they go, I'm trying to grow this plant. How do I do? I add fertilizer, and I've got to amend the soil, and I got to make sure I cut it back, and I do. And the native, you're like, hey, good morning, native, and off you go, and it's just growing in its spot, and everybody seems like literally, if you're downstairs and talk to a customer, you'll see them. They're kind of like low maintenance, like no fertilizer, and you can kind of see them itching to that because they get beauty, they get feel good, and they get to save some time.
Yeah. How lovely is that?
Yeah, it's a win-win.
That's lovely. Well, honestly, that wraps us up for this episode. Thank you so much for taking the time today, Nathan. It was really great to kind of understand a little bit more about native plants and to get your take on how the Community Planting Day was. I really hope that this inspires a lot of folks across the country to look into what kinds of native plants are growing in their own region. Hopefully to reach out to experts like yourself. And what I loved the most was really good, kind of like what was growing there before and how can you help to bring that back, right? Especially when there's so many new communities getting built, right? It's almost like you build a new community, you just wash everything blank canvas, and the fact that you can bring it back.
And what do? They do blank canvas, and then you get
columnar aspen.
3 inches, exactly 3 inches of topsoil, Kentucky blue, and a columnar aspen. See you later, and you're like.
You're like, so we took out all of that for that?
Exactly. Doesn't seem like a fair trade at all.
No. So I love that there's a little bit of hope, and like you said, Colin, a little bit of feel good there as well. So
100%.
Thank you so much, Nathan, for your time. Where can people find you?
We've got a great website that has a lot of information on it, ecologichorticulture.com, and we are on social media, according to our social media guy, Eric.
I love
That's
it.
how
We'll
my
link
family
all of
knows
that.
what I'm up to at work. They follow that.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have any cool projects that Calgarians, that are coming up that Calgarians can kind of look forward to seeing? Are you allowed to say?
Do we ever? Oh, yeah. So we're just going to ship the final shipment. It's the 9th truckload of plants going to a green roof in southwest Calgary. It's in the West Springs neighborhood, so like Old Banff Coach Road and 85th Street. It's an amenity building for a new community park, and the roof is sloped, and there's actually a mustache planting pallet on the roof. And it's just about done, and the mustache is like, it's very clearly visible. I wasn't sure how well it would kind of like contrast and showcase, but it's like a handlebar mustache.
Oh my gosh,
so
a handlebar.
A handlebar is the one that goes down, right? It's like it's like the cowboy.
Oh, like the waxed evil guy mustache.
That kind of thing. Yeah. So, definitely the most unique green roof that we've ever grown, and probably the most challenging I've seen, like because it's on a sloped roof. The roofing contractor's done an incredible job, but yeah, that one it's called Radio Hub, and there's a beautiful park that's being built there by Truman Homes. So it's within a really nice, like newly developed, very urban feeling community.
Okay, nice.
But this is the amenity building for the park. It's an incredible space.
So even when you're building new things, you can still incorporate native plants.
Yep.
I love that there's that thought process going on. We literally just said they're tearing things out, and yet no, they're recognizing it and they're being intentional.
Because of work that people like Eagle Lake and now Ecologic, like Nathan said, grew from that because of the work that people like that are doing.
Yeah.
And because of the work that people like Golden Acre and the city of Calgary are doing, that they're bringing this to people's doorsteps.
Yeah.
it all starts with education and inspiration.
It does.
And without people, like Nathan, Caitlin, and Eric, and then people like us getting on board, the city, the communities, people are still they're doing boring ass roofs and horrible cultivars and being like, I'm doing my part. So
But that's so cool. So that's cool. So in West Springs, we'll make sure to pop that down in the show notes if you're interested in going to check that out.
And we need a photo of the mustache, Nathan. You gotta.
Well, that's a shout out. Like, if you follow us on social media, like there'll be posts about it on Instagram.
Perfect.
Nice.
Sure, Eric's got his drone up flying.
Yeah, we've been keeping it under wraps. Once the final shipment goes out and they finish up next week, we'll get some good photography. But
I look forward
it's
to
a
it.
pretty cool one, and that one is actually a mix. It's mostly sedums, which are not native sedums to Alberta, and then there's a bunch of native bunch grasses that make the outline of the mustache.
Oh, cool.
So much fun.
Yeah,
That's lovely.
Yeah,
Looking forward to it, Nathan. Again, thank you so much, and happy gardening out there.
This podcast is brought to you by Golden Acre Home and Garden. Find seasonal inspiration for your home and garden in Calgary, Alberta year-round. Visit goldenacre.ca. The comments and opinions expressed by the helpful gardeners on this show are our own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Golden Acre Home and Garden. For more information on everything we covered today and to leave us a voice note, visit goldenacre.ca/podcast. The Helpful Gardeners are on Instagram at The Helpful Gardeners Pod. Keep on growing, gardeners!